I'm pregnant, but my fiancé had to go take care of his childhood sweetheart's ex-girlfriend who needed surgery. He even took care of her in bed. I decided to have an abortion and prepared 3 gifts for him. Later on, he was haunted by nightmares, unable to break free. I laughed. Jack, you deserve it. Jack raised his glass, looking at me affectionately. Lucy, happy anniversary. I raised my glass to clink with him, but I didn't drink. Jack, I'm not drinking today because Before I could finish my sentence, Jack's phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID, hesitated for a moment, then hung up, and texted a few words. Lucy, what did you want to say? I also saw the caller ID. It was Mary calling. My heart felt uncomfortable. I shook my head, planning to tell Jack about my pregnancy news when I felt better. Jack smiled, still keeping it a secret, huh? The phone rang again persistently. Jack looked at me with difficulty, answered the call. His expression turned worried. He stood up in a panic, accidentally dropping the cutlery to the floor, making a loud noise. The speaker accidentally got pressed, and Mary's sweet voice came through the phone. Sorry, Jack, for disturbing your anniversary with Lucy, but I'm feeling really unwell. Lucy, Mary is feeling unwell and needs to go to the hospital. She's all alone and needs someone to take care of her. He had a sincere expression, a reasonable explanation. Mary was his childhood sweetheart. They grew up together, and their families had a very good relationship. Before I could react, Jack immediately grabbed his car keys and ran out. I'm sorry, Lucy, I will make it up to you next time. Leaving me alone in a restaurant full of couples, surrounded by curious eyes, the food tasteless. At 10 o'clock in the evening, I returned home, but Jack hadn't come back yet. I checked my phone, empty without any messages from Jack, no calls either. I opened Instagram. Just seconds ago, Mary posted an update. A picture of a hospital corridor, with a man's tall figure waiting in line. The caption read, "It feels like going back to that time. Whenever I need you, you drop everything and come to me." I stared blankly at the phone screen. Mary wasn't only Jack's childhood sweetheart, they also had a relationship in high school. While at that time, I was just a secret admirer of Jack. Later on, Jack and I both got into the same university. Mary's grades weren't good, so they could only maintain a long-distance relationship. In our second year of university, during a club dinner, Jack was smiling, but kept drinking continuously. At the end of the evening, Jack suddenly confessed his feelings to me. He said, "Lucy, have you been secretly admiring me? Would you like to be my girlfriend?" I was so overjoyed at the time, even overlooking how unreasonable Jack's sudden confession was. During our relationship, Jack also deeply moved me. I was working as a tutor at the time and faced harassment from a male parent. My mind went blank and I ran away in panic, only to break down in tears later. Shaking, I called Jack for help, and after hearing me out, he comforted me to stay in a crowded place, then rushed over immediately. He bought me a hot chocolate to soothe my emotions first, then took me to report the incident to the police. After leaving the police station, Jack blushed heavily. I found out later that Jack was running a fever and had to get injections at the hospital. Upon receiving my call, he immediately pulled out the needle and hurried to me. I was touched and guilty at that time, and Jack smiled and patted my head, saying, "You're my girlfriend, you need me, no matter what the situation is, I will definitely come over." But now, I had become the one left behind. At 5 in the morning, Jack returned home. Seeing me sitting on the couch, he looked slightly awkward. "Lucy, couldn't sleep?" I shook my head, couldn't sleep. Jack walked over and crouched in front of me, holding my hand. "Why are your hands so cold? Wear some more clothes," I asked. "How is Mary?" Jack furrowed his brows, a hint of worry in his eyes. "Still not sure. She has to get another checkup today." I said, I'll go see her after work. Jack paused for a moment, nodded, and hurriedly added, Lucy, don't overthink it, I only see her as a sister now. When I arrived at the hospital after work, I saw Mary being playful with Jack. Jack, you know I hate apples. I won't eat it, I don't want to. Jack insisted on peeling and cutting the apple into small pieces, carefully skewering them with a toothpick and offering it to her. You've never liked fruits and vegetables since you were little, your resistance is too weak, that's why you got sick, you need to get more vitamins now. Although Mary protested, she opened her mouth eventually. I envy your girlfriend right now, if it wasn't for this illness, I've missed your meticulous care for so long. Jack, thinking of me or reminiscing about their past sweet time, chuckled lightly. That smile pierced my heart. I turned to leave, but Mary caught sight of me. Lucy. Long time no see. We were just talking about you, come in, come in. I stood frozen at the doorway, and Mary looked at Jack in annoyance. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and cut some fruit for Lucy too. Jack quickly walked over. Are you done? I've got the car, we'll go home together in a bit. I looked up at him, his expression candid, seemingly not seeing anything wrong with his intimate feeding of Mary. I pushed Jack aside, saying to Mary, I remember you had a friend named Amy around here as well. Jack is, after all, a man, and sometimes it might be inconvenient. Why don't you call her over to take care of you? It'll be more convenient. Mary's face showed a hint of guilt, quickly covering it up. Sorry, Lucy. Because Jack has always taken care of me since childhood, I'm just accustomed to it. I lost touch with Amy long ago, now I only know people from here. Jack frowned and interrupted her. All right, you rest well. Then he looked at me and said, Lucy, Mary is the patient now, don't be so sensitive. Their behavior was so ambiguous that it made me feel like I was at fault. My eyes felt sore and teary, maybe it was the hormonal changes after pregnancy, making me especially sentimental lately. But at this moment, I didn't want to show any weakness. I dug my nails deep into my palms, forming a cold smile and said, Jack, if you care so much about your ex-girlfriend, why don't you just get back together with her? Let's break up. This was the first time since we started dating, then getting engaged, that Jack spoke to me in such a reproachful tone, and I couldn't accept it at all. Over the past few years, no matter what happened, he always stood by my side. When Jack's mother called me out for coffee and straightforwardly told me that they wanted a daughter-in-law who would contribute to a warm and harmonious family, and that maybe Jack and I were not very suitable, Jack would suddenly appear and take my hand without saying a word, and lead me away no matter what others said. In my lifetime, I had only one Lucy in mind. I didn't know what he told his parents afterward, but their attitudes softened considerably when they saw me for the second time. After being with Jack for so long, my personality had become stronger, or else I might have just silently walked away earlier. But I couldn't understand, why was Jack, who used to be so protective and never allowed me to be slighted, suddenly unable to control his boundaries with the opposite sex? Or was it just Mary, who held a special place for him? When Jack heard me say break up, he immediately panicked. He caught up to me, held my hand, and didn't let me leave, saying, Lucy. I don't mean anything else, don't talk about breaking up so casually. Mary glanced at him, then at me, and said, Lucy, I'm sorry for causing a misunderstanding, I'll keep my distance from Jack. Please don't have disagreements because of me. After Mary finished speaking, she immediately got out of bed, closed the door to the ward, and shouted, Why don't you hurry and comfort your girlfriend? You were never this dumb before. I was about to burst out laughing. Every sentence seemed to be advice, yet she addressed him so intimately with Jack, hinting at their sweet past. On the way back, Jack suddenly looked hurt, saying, When you said break up, my heart almost stopped. I really have nothing with Mary, as soon as she had her operation, I stopped caring about her. I suddenly realized that I had never noticed this side of Jack before, maybe because Mary hadn't appeared since I started dating him. So I never knew that he would act this way whenever he encountered Mary. I sat in the passenger seat, feeling numb, letting Jack apologize beside me, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. Jack became impatient and said, "Can you stop making a fuss, Lucy? Why are you competing with a patient? Should I just ignore her completely for you to be satisfied?" Before I could reply, a wild dog suddenly darted out in front of us, causing Jack to slam on the brakes. I lurched forward with the momentum, my heart tightening for a moment, and I turned pale, feeling nauseous. I quickly rolled down the window, leaned out, and vomited. Jack hurriedly patted my back and handed me tissues and water, asking, "Lucy, are you okay? Is it your stomach?" I wiped away the tears produced from vomiting and felt like laughing. Mary was the patient, and I was the pregnant one. Regardless of what illness Mary had, it wasn't caused by Jack. I was Jack's fiancé, and he was the father of the child. He should be taking care of and worrying about me the most. Maybe it was just food poisoning from dinner. By this time, we were almost home. Jack accompanied me upstairs to the sofa to rest, then went to the medicine cabinet to fetch the stomach medicine I usually took. Watching me take the medicine, Jack stood up and went to the kitchen. I immediately pretended to go to the bathroom, spat out the pill pressing against the back of my tongue, and flushed it down the toilet. Not long after Jack went to the kitchen, the scent of delicious food wafted out. It was his famous porridge. Due to various reasons, my stomach hadn't been good, and Jack hadn't been much of a cook before. But after we got together, he self-taught himself various dishes that were good for the stomach. Among them, porridge was his specialty. But before any tenderness could develop in my heart, I heard him deliberately close the kitchen door, lower his voice, and answer a phone call. I didn't have to think twice to guess that it was Mary calling. Despite the muffled voice, I could still make out words like stomachache and can't get rid of it. After a while, Jack pushed open the door, carrying out the porridge, gently instructing me to eat slowly. Then he said, "Lucy, there's an issue with a contract at work. I need to go handle it now." I looked at the thermos in his right hand. He was taking the porridge to the office, considering it as a late-night snack for overtime. The bright fluorescent light illuminated his expression clearly, still honest and transparent. Slowly, a smile crept onto my face. "Okay, don't stay too late at work, come back home early to rest." Bending his eyebrows, Jack reached out to touch my head as usual, but I dodged it by turning my head slightly. He was taken aback, and I forced a smile, saying, "You better get to work, don't linger too late." After Jack left, I looked at the shared location on my phone and slowly made my way to the hospital where Mary was soon. Mary updated her Instagram again. "Heartwarming porridge, truly delicious." After reading it, I went to the kitchen and poured the remaining porridge into the trash. At that moment, I actually wanted to tell Jack that I was pregnant. But whether I was pregnant or not, isn't it the duty of a man to inform his fiancée, who isn't feeling well, before going to visit his ex-girlfriend in the middle of the night? My heart gradually cooled down. Regardless of the many beautiful and warm memories I shared with Jack, I had to admit that he seemed to have changed. The hospital where Mary was located was the best tertiary hospital in the city. It was where I found out about my pregnancy, so my follow-up checkups were also scheduled there. Have you been having emotional swings recently? "Look at this HCG value," the gynecologist patiently explained to me, insisting that I must keep a happy mood for the sake of the fetus. After leaving the gynecologist's office, I slowly walked away. The hospital was large and crowded on weekends, but I managed to spot Jack and Mary among the crowd. Jack was carefully supporting Mary, who seemed to be perfectly fine, and she was smiling and saying something to him. They were very close together, and I even noticed that Jack's earlobes were slightly red. When Jack was shy, his face wouldn't redden, but his earlobes would. This was something I discovered during our time together. I overheard a girl next to me sigh to her boyfriend, "Look at those two, such a good-looking couple, handsome guy with a beautiful girl." I watched them until they walked towards me, coming face to face with us. When Jack saw me, his smile froze on his lips, and he suddenly let go of Mary. Today is the day Mary is discussing the surgery plan with the doctor. She said she was feeling a bit anxious, so I cut him off with a smile. No need to explain. But Jack was even more at a loss, almost as if he suddenly remembered something. He urgently asked me, "Why are you at the hospital? Are you feeling unwell? Is it your stomach acting up again? Have you had tests done?" His rapid and anxious questioning caught the attention of the people around us, and the couple next to us exchanged strange looks, focusing on the three of us and then glancing at Mary, giving knowing smiles. "Is this your boyfriend?" The girl was a bit malicious, whether her boyfriend told her not to get involved or deliberately asked out loud. I nodded. "He's my fiancé." "What?" The girl's reaction was extremely exaggerated. "I was just admiring you and your fiancé with that little lady, thinking how sweet it was between you. Turns out," she covered her mouth, as if realizing suddenly, "I don't mean you lead a double life, do you mind?" Several people noticed the commotion and looked over. Jack's face turned dark, and Mary bit her lip, freezing in place, looking somewhat unnatural. Yes, hidden thoughts suddenly magnified in broad daylight, and with any sense of propriety, such situations couldn't be ignored. Mary softly called his name, "Jack, I'm feeling a bit unwell." She looked pale, with a hint of cold sweat on her forehead. She didn't seem to be faking it. This time, instead of immediately going to take care of her, Jack looked towards me. I maintained a smile. "Mary, how about we get a nurse to help you?" Mary's eyes immediately welled up with tears. She looked at Jack, tears like broken beads rolled down, clearly crying, yet she managed to put on a falsely brave smile. "I don't have much to do today. I'll go back to rest first, Jack. You better not come looking for me after the surgery, or Lucy will misunderstand again." She turned around, her slender figure slowly disappearing into the crowd. Jack stared at the direction she walked away, but he didn't follow. Instead, he held my hand tighter and tighter, almost causing some pain. At night, Jack prepared a table full of delicious dishes. "Lucy, once Mary finishes the surgery, I won't meet her alone again." "Jack, you can't forget about her, can you?" Jack fell silent for a moment, then solemnly declared to me, "Lucy, you are my future wife. I only love you." I smiled noncommittally. Jack, a liar must swallow 1,000 needles. At night, after Jack fell asleep, his phone lit up again. Probably due to the recent strain of work and taking care of Mary. I quietly took his phone, and he didn't notice. I entered my birthday, opened the messages, and what caught my eye was a message from Mary. She said, "Jack, do you know what I was thinking about in the hospital lobby today? I was thinking, if we hadn't broken up on the second day of sophomore year, would you be able to take care of me properly now? I wouldn't be standing here like a shameless mistress, being looked down upon by others." I was stunned. It was the second day of sophomore year that Jack confessed to me during a club dinner. I felt like I had fallen into an ice cave. Although I knew Jack was with me because he had broken up with Mary, I didn't expect the time gap between the two relationships to be so short. Or was it that Jack was with me only to spite her from the start? I looked at the phone screen, and my heart grew colder inch by inch. Quietly setting the message back to unread, I stayed awake until dawn. The next morning, when Jack woke up, he smiled and kissed my cheek, saying, "Good morning, Lucy." I couldn't hold back the disgust and wretched. Jack's face changed. Just as he was about to speak, I frowned and said, "I'm feeling unwell. Can you take me to the hospital?" I had Jack take me to a different hospital. The news of our 7th anniversary had passed for over a month, and the father of the child finally learned this outdated happy news. I watched him ecstatically. "Lucy, I'm so happy. You know, I've always liked kids, and I really want our family to have another new life." I knew Jack had a little sister who he adored very much. But she was frail and passed away before she could learn to speak. When Jack persuaded his mother to accept me, he mentioned her. If Emily was still alive, she would be about the same age as Lucy now. "Mom, you've lost a sister already. Why treat another girl who lost her parents like this?" So Jack's mother's attitude towards me changed dramatically. The doctor told Jack, "Pregnant women need to take good care of their babies. You are the child's father, so you must take care of her well." Jack nodded in a hurry, and then his phone rang again. He paused for a moment and then declined the call. I pretended to be generous. "Is it Mary? Why didn't you answer? What if something happened to her?" Jack smiled. "Let's talk about it later. Right now, you and the baby are the most important." I didn't feel touched, just found it ridiculous. Without a baby, is the fiancé of 7 years less important than the ex-girlfriend? Jack told Mary in front of me that he would send a female assistant to take care of her in the future. When Mary learned about my pregnancy, her fragile expression almost couldn't be maintained. As the scheduled surgery date approached, Jack went out to find the doctor, and finally Mary stopped pretending to be peaceful with me. Using a child to bind a man? Are you really using such a lowly tactic? I ignored her sarcasm and touched my belly, smiling. Compared to Mary, I'd say sticking to someone else's fiancé is much more despicable. Mary also smiled. "Jack and I are childhood sweethearts. We're each other's first love. Lucy, let me tell you, nobody can surpass me in Jack's heart. Well, let's see. I don't care how Mary talks tough. Being an orphan, I desire a warm family more than anyone else, so right now, I just want to give the child a complete family. As long as Jack still has a bottom line, I can forgive him for the sake of the child. As for Jack, I no longer trust him." On the day of Mary's surgery, after hesitating multiple times, Jack finally asked me, "Lucy, please believe me, this surgery is really a bit risky. Even as friends for so many years, I'm a little worried." I looked at him. "You may go, just remember what you have said before." Jack hugged me tightly. "Lucy, I belong only to you. We have a baby, we will be happy." Lucy, Mary's surgery went smoothly, and I'll have the assistant continue to take care of her from now on. "What do you want to eat tonight? Shall we go out or should I cook for you?" I opened Instagram. Jack posted a story celebrating Mary's successful surgery. Before I could reply, the email notification sound went off. It was an email from a stranger, with just a recording in a line of text in the body. "Lucy, this is what you wanted." I stared at the email for a few seconds, then clicked on the recording. It was Mary's voice. "Jack, the surgery is coming up in a few days, and I'm a bit scared." Then I heard the familiar voice respond, "Don't be afraid, it's just a minor surgery, I'll come to accompany you." After a few silent seconds, Mary continued, "Jack, is it really impossible between us anymore?" Jack remained silent for a while, his voice hoarse. "You were the one who didn't want me first, and besides, Lucy is carrying my child, I have to be responsible for her." Responsible? Just a duty? So do you still have feelings for me deep down? Mary continued to inquire. Jack rubbed his forehead. "It doesn't matter now, Mary, after you have the surgery, let's not meet again, but I don't want that." Mary's voice suddenly became emotional. "Jack, you are such a coward. Do you dare to admit that deep down, you still love me?" There was silence again. After a while, Mary's tearful voice sounded, "Can you just kiss me one last time, like when we were 16 and just got together? I swear, I won't pester you anymore, I just want one kiss." My heart pounded heavily, a great panic enveloping me. And then, I heard Jack sigh. "What do you want me to do about you?" Following that, the recording contained ambiguous and secretive sounds. I heard Mary say some unpleasant words to Jack in a coquettish tone, and Jack seemed to have forgotten about his fiancée. He only cared about whether Mary's body could bear it, and then gladly accepted the invitation. After listening, I transferred some money to the account and sat quietly in the dark office for a long time. Then, I opened the hospital's public account and scheduled an appointment for tomorrow the next day. After Jack dropped me off at the office, I turned around and took a taxi to the hospital. The cold instruments probed into my body, and at that moment, my brain was surprisingly calm. It was only my heart that felt like it had been torn open, causing a dull ache. Why am I the only one enduring this pain? Why should I? What did I do wrong again? After the surgery, my hand couldn't stop habitually rubbing my lower abdomen. The little one who was there not long ago, was now gone. I heard myself saying to the doctor, "Doctor, don't inform the family yet. My fiancé was really looking forward to this baby. I want to tell him after a while." I messaged Jack saying that I had to go on an emergency business trip for a few days. Shortly after, Jack called back, asking a lot of questions. I found a hotel to rest and recover. During this period, Jack, like every guilty man who strays, showed doubled affection and concern towards me. 10 days later, I returned home, and Jack daily prepared pregnancy recipes for me in different ways, and even enrolled in a nutritionist class. "I don't trust anyone else, but you and the baby definitely need me to take care of you." He told stories to my belly, played music daily, saying these were the prenatal education methods he learned online. Looking at this man in front of me, who anyone would praise as a great father and husband, I suddenly remembered a news about a man cheating that my friend had forwarded to me, with a comment that struck me. Men don't just suddenly turn rotten. He could cook porridge for me, learn to cook for me, and take care of his ex-girlfriend meticulously. He could confess his love to me without reservation, and he could kiss Mary without any psychological burden. He could be in tears one moment over the arrival of new life, and the next moment he could end up in bed with his ex-girlfriend. At that moment, he even cast aside his fiancée and unborn child, only caring about whether he would hurt his ex-girlfriend. I watched Jack, who was deeply engrossed in reading fetal education stories, this man, with eyes as clear as ever. Beneath the surface, however, lay something vile and rotten. Seeing Jack brimming with happiness, I couldn't help but smile. The moment you are happiest now, what expression will you have when your expectations are dashed again? Mary was discharged. She invited Jack and me to visit, thanking us for taking care of her during this time. I smiled, leaning into his arms, and softly said, "Why not invite Amy too? Mary doesn't have many friends here. It will be more lively with more people around." Jack scratched his nose, probably not wanting just the three of us to be alone together, and immediately called Amy. I didn't know what was said on the other end, but dark clouds covered Jack's face. Pretending not to notice, I continued to smile and asked him what gift we should bring to Mary's place. Jack hesitated multiple times, but ultimately didn't say anything. On the agreed day, Jack still accompanied me to Mary's house with a dark expression on his face. After a meal where all three of us harbored our own secrets, I mentioned that I had to go to the office for something, refusing Jack's offer to drive me there. After all, I am very considerate and wanted to create an opportunity for the two of them to be alone. After leaving, I turned on the miniature recorder hidden on Jack. Jack's voice carried a chill. "Didn't we already clarify things last time?" "Jack, I can't let you go. You don't love Lucy, you love me, right? Jack coldly chuckled. It's only now that I realize how good you are at pretending. Let me tell you, Mary, I love Lucy. I know that I didn't treat her well before, and it hurt her. And, Mary, I now know why you broke up with me in the first place. On the way there, I called Amy and invited her to visit with the intention of surprising you. After all, you and she used to be best friends. As soon as Mary heard this, her face paled instantly. Do you know how Amy reacted after hearing me out? She cursed me out, saying that I had her take care of the mistress who stole her boyfriend. Are you out of your mind? Mary begged Jack desperately not to continue. But it was Jack's anger, ignited by the truth, that overcame his pity for Mary. Mary, Amy mentioned the time she said you stole her boyfriend, but that was before you broke up with me, right? Indeed, I was just a poor student at the time, no match for a rich second generation like you. So, why are you coming back to me now? Is it because that man went bankrupt? And now that I have money, you can scoop up some from me, even if you can't sow discord between Lucy and me? Stop, Jack. Mary finally broke down, trembling as she said, I'm not in this for your money. I just still love you. In response, Jack let out another cold laugh. Mary, now I see that you're just a malicious gold digger. It was my mistake. Jack's voice softened. And Lucy is already carrying my child. We will soon marry and welcome a new life. We will be happy. So, Mary, if you continue to pester, you won't like the consequences. Since it's in the past, let it stay there. That night, Jack tightly embraced me from behind. Lucy, having you is so good. When the child is born, we will be the happiest family of 3. I turned away from him, showing a cold smile. The issue with Mary and Amy was something I only discovered these past few days. This is the first gift I'm giving you. Do you like it? Jack, like many soon-to-be dads, began researching various pregnancy and baby care tips. He bought a bunch of baby items in advance, all for a girl. But what if it's a boy? Jack laughed. If it's a boy, honey, you'll have to give birth to a girl for me. I watched coldly as Jack eagerly spent a lot of time preparing for the arrival of this child. His anticipation for the child's arrival grew day by day. A month after the miscarriage, I told Jack we had to go to the hospital for a checkup the next day. Jack hurried to help me lie down. Lucy, you need to sleep early tonight so you're well rested for the checkup. Before long, Jack's phone rang again, and I felt his body, which had been relaxed, tense up for a moment. Nervously, he asked me, Lucy, have you been receiving any harassing emails recently? Pretending to be confused, I said, what harassing emails? Let me check my inbox. Don't look. Jack suddenly interrupted sharply, then came up with an excuse. Blue light is harmful to you and the baby. Let me check for you. There are a lot of email scams going around lately. I obediently handed over my phone, letting Jack do as he pleased. I pretended to be asleep as I heard him sneak out of the room. After the sound of the door closing, I opened my eyes, a look of indifference on my face. Opening the phone again, the email I had sent to myself from my other account was gone. On the way to the checkup, Jack was humming a tune while driving, as if he had been reborn. He tuned into a radio station he had searched for earlier. It was a soft female voice on the station, explaining the knowledge of caring for pregnant women. Jack was listening to the radio while driving. Suddenly, the gentle female voice stopped. Jack, puzzled, asked, "What's going on?" Before he could check, a familiar voice came on. Jack was frozen for 2 seconds, then frantically tried to turn off the radio, but couldn't manage it. He stopped the car, turned to me, his eyes filled with panic and pleading, "Lucy, it's not what you think, let me explain." Listening to that familiar conversation, those familiar secretive sounds, I delivered the greatest performance of my life. Crying. Screaming in pain. Fresh blood. My best friend, who had long been prepared, forcibly removed me from Jack's car, leaving him only with my crying, pale face and the blood stains on the white dress. In the midst of chaos, Jack received the second gift I gave him. I lay on the hotel bed. Jack kept calling me constantly, and I kept sending messages without answering. Lucy, where are you? Please let me see you. Lucy, is the child okay? Shall I take you to the hospital for a checkup? I had blocked Jack's number, but he kept calling me from different numbers, but I had changed all my contact information. A colleague with good relations in the company sent me a message, subtly inquiring if I had relationship problems. She said Jack came to the company, looking like a madman, frantically asking if anyone could contact me. By the time he found me, it had been several months. Jack's gaze lingered greedily on my face, then drifted downwards, pausing on my flat abdomen. Then I saw a smile crack open inch by inch on his face. Lucy, where's the child? The child, miscarried. My tone was casual, as if discussing the weather. Jack's body swayed, almost unable to stand. I gave a cold smile, looking at him. Jack, do you need me to remind you of what you did? Jack looked pitiful, but I did not pity him. You just want the warmth of a family, as well as the tenderness of moonlight. During your first love, your moonlight affair, did you ever think about your fiancé and your child? But what I hate the most is not her. After all, she cannot force you if you are unwilling. Jack, it's you, who killed your own child. Jack opened his mouth, but didn't say a word. After a while, he covered his face, tears falling silently, sobbing uncontrollably. I felt no attachment, turning away. If there was something wrong among the three of us, it was not pulling away decisively at the beginning, allowing Jack to hurt me over and over again. I'm sorry, baby, it's all Mommy's fault. But Mommy doesn't want your body to carry such unbearable blood. If you still want to be Mommy's child, you must come to my dreams and tell me, okay? Not long after, Jack appeared in front of me again. He had lost a lot of weight, sunken eyes, and with a thud, he knelt in front of me. Lucy, please give me another chance. We will have children. Let me compensate you two properly, okay? Looking down on him from a height, Jack knelt down, staring at me, waiting for the impending judgment, but I laughed. Sure, but you have to do something first. Overwhelmed with joy, Jack nodded frantically. Lucy, I'll do anything you ask. I took him to the hospital. The gynecology department happened to be promoting some pregnancy knowledge recently, simulating a pregnancy termination procedure on the spot. I held Jack's hand tightly, accompanying him as he watched what I had experienced that day. Various types of small rods, one by one inserting in. As the doctor demonstrated step by step, I could clearly feel Jack's hand becoming almost as cold as ice. But I was not going to let him off that easily. I leaned in close to his ear and whispered softly, "It was you who, with your own hands, made your baby go through all this, Jack. It hurts so much, and the baby must have been in pain too." Maybe, it was a girl. Jack's eyes were lifeless, as if his soul had been drained from his body. I asked Jack's parents for a divorce, but Jack's mother invited me to meet her directly. She pleaded with me to forgive Jack, but I replied with just 2 sentences. I mentioned the pain of losing a child, something Auntie had endured for 20 years. She probably understood it better than me, right? If Emily had been murdered, would you forgive the killer? Jack's mother muttered a few words, and I smiled at her, filled with hatred in my eyes. I won't forgive Jack, never. As the conversation ended, a person emerged from behind the screen in the tea room. It was Jack, crying and laughing at me, saying, "Lucy, if you don't forgive me, I can't forgive myself either." After that day, I have nightmares every night, dreaming of the baby covered in blood, crying at me. Friends in common with Jack called me, telling me about Jack's poor mental state, how he took loads of medication daily, afraid to sleep, as he would see the bloody baby in his dreams. It wasn't enough to just suffer from insomnia and nightmares. It was time to give Jack one final gift. I took out my phone and dialed a number. Amy, do you want to meet? Years had gone by, but Amy was still the same. In the coffee shop, as I shared the events that had unfolded between us three, a well-dressed Amy looked down on us. Back then, Mary broke up with Jack because of Amy's rich boyfriend, who quickly broke up with Amy and pursued Mary instead. Learning about their affair before the breakup, Amy was furious, beat up her boyfriend, then publicly confronted Mary, but many people didn't believe her and sided with Mary. Guess what? They all said I had a bad temper, making men lose face, while men preferred Mary's gentle and caring nature. It all seemed to be in Mary's favor. I presented some evidence to Amy, which she edited before sharing it on high school alumni groups and university forums. Years later, Mary had another scandalous story attached to her, interfering in her ex-boyfriend's relationship, resulting in his fiancée having a miscarriage. With undeniable evidence, Mary's reputation in her social circle died. Amy finally had her revenge, and I added a little fuel to the fire, passing on the information to someone who could make use of it, leading to Mary's dismissal from her job. Jack wasn't faring any better. As the news spread in their social circle and online, portraying Jack as a typical scumbag, netizens rose against him, boycotting his company's products. Then, Mary caused trouble for Jack again. But Jack believed that the recording was done by Mary. In Jack's eyes, 7 years ago, Mary betrayed him for a rich guy, and now after all those years, she shamelessly came back, causing the death of his long-awaited child. Amidst the new and old resentments, with Jack's worsening mental state, it was easy to predict what would happen. Mary called the police, and Jack was incarcerated for intentional harm. With reconciliation out of the question, Mary received a hefty compensation and opted for a settlement. She publicized the injury photos with her bruised and swollen face, obtained by Amy, and spread the news. Former classmates mocked the both of them, laughing at their back-and-forth drama. Jack's career was ruined. His business partners had long wanted to kick him out, and soon after, Jack was forced to resign. Jack would text me from different numbers, sending me messages, then blocking one after another, sometimes even sending photos of tables filled with empty bottles, emanating a drunken atmosphere in his texts. He would confide in me about the stress and pain he endured, claiming his life was ruined, his mental state on the verge of collapse, pleading for my forgiveness. It was almost funny, his social, family, and career life in shambles. Wasn't this all Jack's doing? Was it so difficult for a man to adhere to a moral bottom line? Seeing Jack's increasingly troubled mental state, I decided to give him a final gift. I called him and revealed all the truths to him. After listening in silence for a while, Jack asked me one question. So, when I was learning about childcare, buying those toys and clothes, the child was already gone, right? All of this was of his making. If only he had some conscience, some ethical boundaries, we wouldn't have reached this point. Jack, you disgust me so much that I wouldn't want a child with your inferior genes to be born into this world, understand? I expected Jack to rage or go mad, but instead, he began to beg me. Please, Lucy, I know I was wrong. You can take any revenge you want, I only have you left. Don't leave me. The baby can't come back, so Jack, we are also beyond repair. I uncomfortably changed all contact methods, thinking the matter was resolved, but the police called me. In a room filled with unopened baby products, toys of all sorts, I saw Jack's body. He lay peacefully with his eyes closed, as if he were asleep. The police questioned me seriously, saying that Jack's last phone call was from me. Then, they handed me a letter, a farewell note meant for you, madam. I skimmed through the emotional front section and landed on the final sentence. My suicide has nothing to do with anyone. I am not worthy of living in this world, Mom, Dad, I am sorry. I offer my life as compensation for the baby, but Lucy, you must live on, you must find happiness. Late regrets are worthless. I walked out and tossed the letter in the trash.